23andMe came back with more sub-Saharan African than Elizabeth Warren has Native American. And she wrote a Native American cookbook called Powwow Chow. Do you have any idea how racist that is? That'd be like me publishing Soul Cooking with Stephen Crowder. Yes, sir, no, sir.
This fall, prepare for not one, but two rebels with a cause.
Now remember Boy Scouts. Boy, how did that go awry? Let's go with this single guy out into the woods and he'll teach us to tie knots.
The Rebels with a Cause Comedy Tour. Tickets on sale now at louderwithcrowder.com/tour.
Delicious. Am I okay, Gerald? With the
You look good.
All right, good.
Yeah.
I have a horrible tendency to just come in looking like a slob, and Gerald's like, just fix your collar.
Can you put a little effort into it, please?
Put a little bit of effort into it. It's why I don't have a clothing sponsorship. But Xenia, you're barking up the wrong tree. Adrian Brody doesn't know. He doesn't know what he's doing. Come on, you can't teach this. Glad to be with you. Look, let me issue a disclaimer before we get to anything today. I am going to be discussing the Vatican. Okay. And why the Vatican right now is a communist crap hole. Now, to be clear, and I've talked about this before, and it relates to the Communist Chinese Party because of the Vatican's cozy relationship with them. I love the Chinese people, which is why I hate the Communist Chinese government. I have a lot of love for practicing Catholics, Bible-believing Catholics, of course, who exist throughout the... That's why I have a problem with the political corruption in the Vatican. So just to be clear, and if you could do me a favor, if you're a Catholic and you understand the difference, hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm. But understand this is not targeted towards practicing Catholics, but the people in the Vatican who have, would I say, corrupt general malfeasance, who've been engaging in general malfeasance as it relates to the communist government of China. We'll also be talking about why libertarianism is dead, because I know a lot of you got mad when I discussed that with Alex Jones, and I don't apologize for it. All right. So that, my question before I move to anything else. Are you worried about Russia? You worried about Russia hitting the nuke button? I'm not. Dave, yeah, and by the way, Dave Landau is not here today. He has a family emergency to tend to, so send your prayers, comment below. Prayers, wish them well. But him and I are going to be in Nashville November 12th. We added a second show at 9:30 p.m., a late show. And then Baltimore, December 3rd, the Lyric. Those are the only shows where there are tickets left. We're going to have to add some here before the end of the year. Gerald A., how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good.
Sleep well?
I did.
For the what?
I did.
Really? Why? How?
I think it's because my daughter is afraid of sleeping because she had a nightmare.
Well, you showed her the terrifying clown movie.
I know. I shouldn't. Yeah.
That was a bad idea.
I know. She shouldn't know that it floats down there. And she when she starts falling asleep, she goes, ah, and she wakes up afraid. But then I think, kind of in soothing her, I soothed myself.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
You read yourself a bedtime story.
And thank God that I did, because next step was I'm like, oh, I'm gonna shake her. No, I do think that in singing lullabies to the kids, like you kind of, because you don't do that for. I never sing myself lullabies.
You don't?
No, but it soothes the savage beast.
So we're not supposed to do that?
No, I know. You don't so much sing lullabies as talk dirty to yourself.
I rock myself to sleep. Don't worry.
Yeah, let's go with that. So you good though?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right.
Great.
I know you've got a lot of stuff that's straight down center plate here today.
I know.
As someone who's a student of the theology.
I feel like this was a layup for me.
But before we get to that, we have to watch something here really quickly, because Russia right now, Ukraine, all of the... been a lot of stuff going on with them, and we're supposed to really care. I don't all that much. I'm not going to lie. When it's one corrupt crap hole fighting another corrupt crap hole, the best you can hope for is a double knockout, okay? And I get that the citizens are caught in the crossfire and your heart breaks for them, but I just don't think that we should be involved. And the irony is not lost on me that I'm about to do a segment on why libertarianism doesn't work, because I am a non-interventionist as a general rule. I support Donald Trump when he said, no more wars unless we take the oil. Like, well, yeah, of course, that makes sense.
There we go. It pays for the war.
You take the resources.
Yeah.
You take their stuff. So I don't think we should be going to war to helping anybody, supporting a war unless we get something out of the deal. But everyone's been talking about, Russia. I do think the paper tiger has been exposed, where we always thought, ooh, the Russians.
Yeah.
The Russians, they're the best in sport. Well, sure, it turns out they were walking human pincushions. That's why they were so great in sport.
Yeah.
Oh, the Russian military. Well, okay, sure, but that's because once upon a time they just threw bodies at their opponents. And now they don't have as many bodies. And all of their artillery is out of date. And they're not nearly as... The myth of the Russian soldier has kind of been dying on the vine here. It's a bunch of drunken conscripts. So you may want to know why they've stalled in their war with Ukraine. I have some footage of a Russian soldier. This is an actual Russian soldier training, and you know what? I think now we can all call it a hunch. AB down select.
I'm retarded.
I love how he's going the opposite direction of his punches to kill any momentum.
Is he kicking babies?
Yeah. I tell you what, you should hide anyone in the nursery.
Yeah. You send the midgies after him.
Like, I will go into preemie ward and show them who's boss. They're like, oh, are you here to hold the babies? I am here to kick the babies. But by the way, that could just be a kid cosplaying. I don't know if that's an actual Russian soldier, but I assume so.
Based on what we've seen from
Based on what we've seen.
Yeah, Star Wars kid would win.
Yes. Yeah. Give him a breeze. You didn't tell me we could have broomstick. I only have baby kick. He has broomstick. This is not fair fight.
I'm going to punch and fall this way.
He's the only guy who might lose to Stephen A. Smith. We can pull that. If the guys out there can pull that clip. You ever see him when he was hitting the pads? And he looked like he was punching babies. Criticizing UFC fighters. The guy's a moron. He's like, I was confusing. Conor McGregor, he quit. Donald Cerrone quit in the octagon. I know, because I hit pads. And then they show him he's like punching downward like a little baby. So anyway, here's the thing. So Russia, they've now been stepping towards full mobilization, and there are some lawmakers they're pushing to reinstate the draft. Also, by the way, we're talking about the draft, the reason that women shouldn't have the vote. I'll let that ride because I want you to be offended. The women out there, like, you think we don't? No, I don't think that women should have the right to vote unless you are eligible for the draft. And by the way, it should apply retroactively, meaning that you get drafted before any men, since we were drafted in Vietnam and you had the right to vote. You got the vote without the mandatory draft, which men had.
Fair is fair.
They had to be eligible for the draft or they couldn't vote. Fair is fair.
But then again, maybe we don't want we don't want the army to be full of women. No offense.
Because they're physically weaker. So
don't want you to have
300,000 reservists have been called up in Russia. And here's the thing. Just last night, Vladimir Putin did make some threats. And if you watch this video, I actually had to double check to make sure that it wasn't edited originally. All the references are available at loudofcutter.com. He was... I wouldn't even say these are veiled threats, just discussing nuclear options. I should warn that this has more to do with Ukraine, not launching a nuke in the States, because they wouldn't have the capability. Like they try and use a trebuchet if they tried to get it over here. So here, let's watch them.
Но и о высказываниях некоторых высокопоставленных представителей ведущих государств НАТО о возможности и допустимости применения против России оружия массового поражения, ядерного оружия. Tем, кто позволяет...
Hold on a second. Pause this clip. I want to go back to it. Pause this clip. Right now. Go to CNN. What is with the faces of CNN? What is with... Bring it up full screen. I don't want you to... It was Janet from the Muppets.
I think we got a screen grab.
Okay, we'll grab a screen grab. All right, sorry. Let's continue the Vladimir Putin making empty threats clip.
We break into Ukrainian war.
Breaking news because of a funny face on CNN. All right.
All right.
Но и о высказываниях некоторых высокопоставленных представителей ведущих государств НАТО о возможности и допустимости применения против России оружия массового поражения, ядерного оружия.
Look at him breathing. I think he's going to die.
Seems labored.
Хочу напомнить, что наша страна также располагает различными средствами поражения, а по отдельным компонентам и более современными, чем у стран НАТО. и при угрозе территориальной целостности нашей страны, для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не блеф.
Now, look, just to be clear, don't step on me or don't get mad over this. I'm not saying that Putin and Trump share anything in common as far as policies. But they do in the way that they sort of try and veil and couch their bragging. It's like,
right.
We have a variety of weapons. Yeah. And I am not going to... That'd be like Donald. We have so many great weapons. I'm not going to say which ones. But there are, frankly, a lot of weapons. The best weapons. You'll find out. Oh, I hope you don't. I hope you never have to find out, but maybe you'll find out. Push me and find out. That's what he does. Like, we have weapons. We don't want to tell you what. It's like, no, you don't.
He's like, in some ways, they're superior to NATO countries. In what ways?
In so many ways. In so many ways,
Sir,
they're so much better than the NATO people who, frankly, are not the best people.
They're not sending their best.
There is that similarity. But it keeps you on your toes.
Really is. There is, and we'll see. I think he could use a tactical nuke at some point if he gets pushed too far. I hope not. And it wouldn't be against us, like you said. It'd be against Ukraine.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Or maybe some kind of, maybe not necessarily a nuke, but some type of severe weapon.
Right.
Or something like that. I don't know their biochemical capabilities or something like a Moab. I have no idea exactly what. No one really knows what their capabilities are. We assumed that they were far greater than they are. And you know what? Just remember this, because when everyone was saying for the longest time that China was going to be the world's greatest superpower, you may not know this. That was almost like, and you would hear, because now I think we all agree, right, that the left is entrenched with China. Mm-hmm. It was almost propaganda like Hitler, remember? Like, give up, you will all lose. Your soldiers, your fellow soldiers are dead. Right? And it wasn't true. That's what they were doing with China, saying China's the next great superpower, so we better get in line. Donald Trump was the first president to say, no, I don't think so. And we saw the changes that were made. And right now we see this with Russia, where we all believed they were the toughest son of bitches on the planet. We now know that's not true.
Right.
What do we not know about China? So don't lose hope, right? They've been trying to tell you that, well, if China gets in, do we really know that? There is a wild card when you're dealing with a communist government that oppresses its people. Turns out a lot of people don't really want to fight for them.
Yeah. They're having to conscript soldiers and fine them or imprison them potentially in Russia to get them to go and join this fight. Nobody really wants to do it.
As opposed to here, you just set up a recruitment center at the local drag queen story hour and your ranks are full.
Done. Not effective, but full.
We're going to do a segment on that tomorrow, the American military, that we're missing our recruitment numbers, and it's because the exact kind of people who you want to be in the military, who used to go into the military, now are disgusted by it.
Yeah.
But we have a bunch of gender-bending whatever. Okay.
You just throw them at the enemy?
You want to see Stephen A. Smith punching at babies?
Yeah. Yes. Let's show Stephen A. Smith punching it. And this is after, by the way, he said that Donald Cerrone quit. He said that he quit in the octagon when he had his nose broken. And then in order to defend himself, Stephen A. Smith released this video like, I know what I'm talking about. Watch me hit pads. That would be too low to punch a dick.
It's like thigh punching. Oh.
What I do right here is I make them think I'm going to hit them in the face. I tap the thigh. Guy's like,
Thank
all
you,
right.
Stephen A.
Okay. Is it Stephen A. or Stephen A. Smith?
Well, Stephen A. is a lot of times what he
Oh, you're going by the nomenclature. Okay.
Yeah.
You and him are on
we're good friends.
You're on a first name and initial basis.
First Twitter hatred basis.
I've also got a weird face on CNN.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Come on. That's Janet from the Muppets, man. Let's bring that up later, side by side. Guarantee you, it's uncanny. All right, let's go to another thing. I don't know if this is real or not, and I didn't have time to look it up. I assume maybe. So, you know what? Comment below if you or anyone you know has been making the old soul food recipe of NyQuil chicken, because apparently enough people have been doing it, or there have been enough trolls that the FDA has had to release a statement saying that it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So apparently there's a TikTok trend right now where people are cooking, if you want to call it that, their chicken and cold or flu medicine like NyQuil. Hence the name Sleepy Chicken.
Raw chicken.
Now, because this trend has taken over a ton of headlines and been talked about all over social media, doctors are warning people to not do this for several reasons. One, you're likely taking way more than the appropriate dose. And two, if you're not cooking the chicken properly, you could give yourself food poisoning. And three, this one's the most obvious to me, it sounds completely disgusting.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I don't know. I don't mind the cherry NyQuil.
It's not so bad.
That's not so bad. I could eat that.
I did a shot of that in college and called it my drinking because it's like 2% alcohol or whatever.
I became addicted to NyQuil almost.
Really?
When I was really sick and I was trying to get out from it when I lived in New York City, and I didn't realize this. My doctor told me that actually NyQuil, specifically what's the doximylene succinate, I think it is. It's not the same thing as Benadryl.
No idea.
Which is diphenhydramine or something like that. But there's something in specifically NyQuil and in the Unisum tabs, that doximylene succinate, it was like a dirty bomb. So it affects all these receptors. So I took it for about a week because I couldn't get out from being sick. And then after the week, I was like, why am I not able to sleep? And why am I getting cold sweats? Turns out it was a NyQuil.
Well, the things you choose to remember in your brain.
It was shocking.
I have to correct you. If it's going to be soul food chicken using medicine, it's going to be Tussin chicken.
Is it going to be Tussin chicken?
It's not going to be NyQuil.
I love how the FDA, they're so dumb. Like, not only could you accidentally be ingesting more, yes, they're accidentally ingesting NyQuil. Just like people are accidentally putting cough medicine into Arizona watermelon iced tea and mixing it with Skittles. It's an accident. Yeah. Well, that's the selling point.
How would this contribute to people undercooking chicken? They're either going to cook it correctly or not, regardless of sauce. I don't understand.
I don't know. Maybe NyQuil's not as good of a conductor. I have no idea.
It protects the chicken somehow.
So the FDA, they stepped in, they warned boiling a medication can make it much more concentrated, that's the point, and change its properties in other ways. That'd be like walking up to people who are distilling, who are making like the honey oil from pot and be like, no, that's going to be too concentrated. Like, oh, thanks, we'll get right on that, bitch. Like, they don't care. Why do you think they're distilling it? Put simply, someone could take a dangerously high amount of the cough and cold medicine without even realizing it. Thank you, FDA.
Yes. This is fantastic. You're doing a bang-up job.
Yeah. I don't know why people are just picking NyQuil. You'd think it'd be like, what you have, like Robitussin salmon, prednisone puffer fish. I don't know. Prednisone doesn't get you high, does it? I don't know.
I have no.
I took it once and I got amped. I was like the Kool-Aid guy. By the way, this is a live show Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you're not watching here on Rumble right now or Mug Club, that's where you can go. You might be watching on YouTube, and we appreciate it, but we don't know how long we'll be here.
Right.
I just got some notifications from Twitter this morning. I am in violation of German law yet again. Yeah.
Again.
Oh. Nice. You're always in violation of German law. By the way, I think the Robitussin thing started as just a let's see if we can get people to not Robitussin, sorry, NyQuil. Let's see if we can get people to buy this. And now the FDA's coming on. It's like, yeah, you took the bait again. Nobody's really doing that. Maybe some people are now.
I think people are doing it.
Really doing it.
I think people are doing it
at the beginning.
Like maybe 5 people were doing it.
Well, I was one of the 5.
You tried this recipe last night, huh?
Yeah.
It works.
Wash it down with a little Wild Turkey 101.
Was it in the Julia Child cookbook?
Yes. Today we'll be making NyQuil rotisserie.
The ship is sure in the nicodoo.
I like the way it makes me feel in my nether regions.
Swedish chef just throwing it all over the
nature's lubricant, I always say. All right, let's get to excess deaths in Europe because I'm wishing that I was one of them right now. July. And I need to preface this. We're going to cover this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little teaser.
Excess deaths in Europe now are up 16% in July 2022. That's the highest of the year. They saw over 21,000 just in the UK alone, excess deaths. And we need to do more due diligence, okay? We'll cover this story tomorrow, and I need to tread lightly.
Correct.
I have one primary concern. So we'll make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's tomorrow.
Yes, and I will mostly remain silent.
Yeah. What always happens with this is what I would encourage you to do. Like I say, if nothing else from the show, we make all of our references publicly available. You can check the description below or go to louderwithcrowder.com. Is when you see this, you know right away that the leftist artillery, right, the battle machine, the blood machine is going to be in full swing. Okay, I was trying to think battle regalia. I'm like, that's the dress.
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, Battlestar Galactica, beats, bears. No, you know that they're going to come out and write. What the question you need to ask yourself is, okay, what is the strongest argument that the left is going to present to try and either say this isn't a concern or to try and say that it's directly related to COVID? Now, the lazy argument is they'll probably say these are COVID deaths. At first, that's lazy. It's not true. You can look at the numbers. My guess is they will try and say, and this is sort of unfolding as I send this, we don't have all of the information. I need to dive into the data more deeply. They'll try and say, well, these are auxiliary deaths that still are somehow related to COVID, something like long haul Or, while completely missing the points, due to lockdowns, people were unable to, or hospitals being overburdened, they were unable to see patients for other significant healthcare issues. It's like, do you hear yourself? It's all self-imposed. So think. Come back tomorrow, but I want you to write down, and I mean this, get a little notepad, go analog. Write down what you think the strongest arguments are that we will be hearing as to why there are an abnormal amount of excess deaths that cannot be accounted for by COVID alone. And then we'll dive in tomorrow.
And hopefully
Definitely
not get banned.
global warming.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It's a climate change. Climate change.
Yeah, we've updated that.
I love how in Texas, by the way, remember they were like, this is this heat wave. And then throughout the rest of August and September, it's not the coldest August or September. It's been the most mild, like the most temperate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, well, is that climate change? Because this is just pleasant.
Dropping off.
Well, it's not even dropping off. It's just been consistent. Like, when was the last time here in North Texas? And if you're in Texas, we had 70-degree days.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah, we had a couple of weeks of those.
Yeah, a couple of weeks of those.
Very rare at that time of year.
And even now, it's mostly low 90s or high 80s. In September, it's often in the hundreds.
We hit a spike. Yeah. We're coming back down. We were at 97 yesterday. So.
Oh.
I'm just saying I'm trying to make sure the audience gets the right info and you don't.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is, I remember when we moved to Texas and I got heat stroke. It was 110.
Exactly.
This was my family moved to Texas. What, 18 years ago?
Yeah. Well, it's hotter than Canada. Yes.
Right. Which is where
breaking news.
Which is where your mistress lives.
What?
Allegedly.
His girlfriend's in Canada. These jokes don't work. There you go. Come on. Come on. Faces of CNN. It's like a prerequisite to work there.
It is weird.
Like, I'd like to work at CNN. Here are my credentials. Do you have a weird face?
They must be super smart.
You have the right stuff for CNN, weird-faced Karen.
I like the cut of your jib face.
You'll be an executive in no time. All right, so let me get to something here. I saw people getting mad when I had the Ash Wednesday with Alex Jones. I'm a recovering libertarian. Now, if you look at what I believe and you look at where I would sort of line up on policies, I certainly would lean much closer to the libertarian side of the spectrum, but I don't like using the word. The reason for it is when you have throughout time, like Greg Gutfeld, Bill Maher, Glenn Beck, and the Reason Magazine people all claiming to be libertarians, what does it mean? Yeah. And then when you watch the libertarian debates, it's just a bunch of people with lisps arguing about weed and cryptocurrency. So I don't think there's a whole lot there for me. But I do believe that originalist sort of federalism, conservatism, certainly lines up more with libertarianism. But we do find ourselves right now at a point in this country where it can't possibly function. And let me explain to you why. And this is before we get to the Vatican story. Libertarianism is a preventative measure. It works if you set it up from a framework of small government and you maintain it. It is not a recovery. It is not a curative measure. And right now we are at a point in this country where a preventative measure like libertarianism, you can't fight something aggressive, meaning thousands of pages of new legislation each day by saying, well, there shouldn't be any. I understand that. But there is, and it almost never gets taken off the books. And the idea of free markets, which I support, free enterprise, I support. I've always said I'm not the party of big business, the party of small business. I'm the party of good business. The problem is there really are no free markets in the biggest industries that exist in the world today. And really, when you look at one of the few legitimate purviews of government, it is to protect us from threats, both external and internal, and to ensure that everyone is playing by the rules that might harm somebody.
Yeah.
And certainly now when you look at the organizations, we'll get into big tech, big banks, airlines, health insurance companies, they are causing direct harm to the American citizens, and they are doing so with carte blanche from our federal government.
Right. Well, too big to fail. I mean, you're supposed to have a level playing field so that people can come in and compete, and that's what keeps goods and services more affordable and gives everybody the opportunity to innovate. Once you have these big companies set up and the government backing them up, that's no longer the case.
Exactly. So first, we don't have a stinger for question, do we?
I got a
stinger. Oh, all right. Yeah. So question. Oh, that's nice. What is libertarianism? I didn't know we had that. Spare no expense.
Yes.
So, what is libertarianism? Let's work from this. And since it's a slow news day, this is why we're going a little bit macro. And bear with me. These are things that circulate in my mind all the time, and we don't always necessarily get to hit it if we're under the tyranny of today.
Right.
This is a framework that I think everybody needs because I get a lot of messages, and especially when we do these live shows. I will be in Nashville, and we'll just go to loudwithcutter.com/tour. We get a lot of people afterwards who come up and say, "Well, as a small government conservative, how do I sort of reconcile that with the idea of needing to do something with big tech?" Well, it's not hard. The two are not at odds, and I'll explain to you why. So first, what is libertarianism? Okay, have a definition here. A political philosophy maintaining that all persons are the absolute owners of their own lives and should be free to do whatever they wish with their persons or property, provided they allow others the same liberty. There's nothing there with which I disagree,
right?
To be clear. There's a moral psychologist, I guess is his title, Jonathan Haidt, had an interesting hypothesis on sort of how libertarians think. Here's a clip.
There is a big sex difference here. Men are generally higher on systemizing. Women are generally higher on empathizing. And what we find is that libertarians are, in a sense, the most masculine out there. And this is true even when we analyze only the men, separate all the men and women, just look at men. Libertarian men are the highest on systemizing of any of the three groups, and they are the lowest on empathizing. Same thing for women.
Okay. Now, first off, let me just say I disagree with that as it applies to conservatism. I understand the idea that libertarianism is, people might be low on the empathy scale. I will tell you, I am a conservative, I'm a constitutionalist, I'm a federalist because I am hyperly empathetic. I look at the people of Venezuela. I look at the people of, you look at the people under Stalin's regime. You look at the people under Castro. Currently, when we're talking about Venezuela, take your pick, China. Yeah. I look at them and I say, it's never possibly worked. So you may see in the short term saying, well, you don't want to extend a hand? No, I see what handouts lead to. And because I don't want to see the destruction of not only society, but the human spirit, I'm a conservative. I think it's the most empathetic worldview that you can possibly have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the only one that allows for compassion, because government is never compassionate because they're dealing with numbers that are too big to be compassionate. You're not dealing with one, you're dealing with thousands, millions of people, and so you can't be compassionate with that.
And that's why you see leftist individuals, they donate far less to charity than conservatives. The single two biggest determining factors, I think it was Brooks wrote this, a book called Who Really Cares, if I'm not mistaken. Guys in the edit bay, you can let me know if that's right. Discussed who gave to charity. And the single biggest determining factors were your faith, religion, and your political persuasion.
Yeah, and it was
Christians,
massively
it was
different.
A huge difference because you have Nancy Pelosi saying, no, the empathetic thing is to have open borders and to give all the money to government and less than 1% to charity, and go weed whack my lawn. That's how it's rules for thee and not for me.
Right. Well, but it assuages their guilt, right? They're like, oh, I can just, pay taxes and do this. The government's responsible for doing this. The charitable view is I'm responsible for helping my local community, so I'll give to charity locally and let these guys go and do the work, and I'll also volunteer. And not write off my underwear, Joseph Biden.
Yeah.
Remember when he did that?
Yes.
Wrote off underwear.
I didn't know you could have write-offs for skin marks.
Especially for his underwear.
They're like $8,000 and Depends. You're bullshitting.
These are brown Hanes? I thought they only made white tidy whities.
It's more of a cream taupe.
Slightly used.
Gently used. It says on Amazon. Gently used to new.
I almost blew a hole in them, but hey.
So, let's... there was something I was going to say, and now I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. But it's okay. It doesn't matter. This is one of those days. Here, let's go to this. A few examples. You are at a point now where the libertarian argument can't apply when you're talking about big tech. When you're talking about these giant non-government entities that have more influence over the government and over your life than even the government would be justified in exerting. Let me give you a few examples. Okay. Facebook. Start with Facebook. They are an arm of left-wing government, just to be clear. They don't allow any opinions that contradict what? Government agencies. Or like the CDC, or international governing agencies, like the WHO, who, by the way, don't acknowledge Taiwan's existence. Hold on a second. Here, is it political? Is this a private industry, or is it political if they are taking marching orders from the WHO, who does not acknowledge Taiwan's existence? Because, by the way, acknowledging Taiwan's existence might be the reason for World War III.
I got that clip if you want.
Oh, of them not even acknowledging the... Yeah, you know what? Let's pull this up. It's bone chilling.
WHO considered Taiwan's membership.
Come again.
She's cute.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. I couldn't hear your question.
Okay, yeah. Let me repeat the question.
No, that's okay. Let's move to another one then.
Right, because I'm actually curious on talking about Taiwan as well, on Taiwan's case.
Here's the thing. I should say that I'm most upset because it's wrong. I'm most upset because I'm jealous that you can just do that.
I was about to say, you can do that? You could just end an interview and it's like, everybody's like, oh yeah, sorry, it just happened.
Any argument in a relationship, like, well, why didn't you take out the trash?
Can you, I didn't hear your question.
I did this. You can't see me.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense at all.
So,
Oh, by the way, you know what the most fun part is about not being able to post information that can't contradict one of those
I'm going to guess it's not fun, but go.
It's when the WHO and the CDC don't agree. Then you can't be like, hey, the WHO said, because the CDC's like, no, we don't agree, or vice versa. And
right.
Like, I didn't.
That's like having an alcoholic father who beats your mother, who's also an alcoholic, and beats him back.
And it's just like,
yeah,
whatever.
That's what happens in the CDC and WHO fight. So there you go. That's political, and you're not allowed to speak out against that. Now, let me give you a more specific example. Zuckerberg also emailed Dr. Fauci personally in March 2020 to collaborate with the NIH to ensure, quote, people get authoritative information from reliable sources. Not to mention, of course, Facebook's decision to ban the 45th president until at least 2023 for public safety concerns. What is a public safety concern? We don't want him to win. We don't want him to win.
Really don't want him to win.
So, was this private enterprise? Is this free market? When people say, go create your own Facebook, how do you do that? How do you do that when the head of Facebook, Meta, is directly emailing Dr. Fauci, the highest paid government official who's never been elected? Think about that for a second. Dr. Fauci's never been elected by you. He's not even your representative, and he's talking with Zuckerberg to give them marching orders who can control what you say. Nothing about that is emblematic of a constitutional republic, and nothing about that can be solved through a preventative measure like libertarianism. It no longer applies here. By the way, Facebook, Alphabet, Apple, Amazon, they've donated millions of dollars to Joe Biden and Democrats in 2020. Not to mention, of course, you have what? Zuckerberg and Twitter, and to a lesser degree, Google, YouTube, censored the Hunter Biden laptop story. Not only did they censor it, they censored the story while allowing political opposition to paint it as Russian propaganda.
Right.
And then said, whoops, we were wrong. Is this a free market? Is the true libertarian view? Well, Facebook can do whatever it wants. Well, because when you're saying Facebook can do whatever it wants, the libertarian in you is saying Dr. Fauci, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Kamala Harris, Jean-Pierre, they can do whatever they want. You're not talking about a private entity.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because Mark Zuckerberg, his solution to say, oh, we're not as bad as Twitter over there. We didn't actually ban the story and make them, go silent for 10 days while their account was banned. We just shadow banned it so nobody knew that we were making it to where you didn't see it pop up in your newsfeed. And so it was a significant reduction in the spread of this information that potentially, according to polls, not me, could have changed the outcome of an election.
It absolutely would have changed the outcome of the election. According to Biden voters.
I get us banned so many times.
According to Biden voters, 12% of them, I believe, I'm going by rote, said it would have changed my vote if I knew about the Hunter Biden laptop story. That switches all of the swing states.
Yeah. And
how does libertarianism fix that?
Yeah.
Let's go on to another example. So now you have the biggest organizations, the biggest companies that have ever existed throughout the history of mankind. The West Indian Trading Company, I think, employed like a fifth of population Earth, not as powerful as the big tech companies. And by the way, they all email each other. Do you think they accidentally all banned Alex Jones and Donald Trump within 24 hours of each other? Come on. It's not a conspiracy if it only requires 5 people to make it happen. So let's go to example number 2. Banks. Hey, banks, I agree with you. I agree with you that banks should have the right to do what banks want to do. They should be, but banks are not separate from the government. If you look at banks and you look at hedge funds, they manipulate the economy, for example, to short stocks. Before we even get into the bailouts, remember Robinhood? Remember they stopped the purchasing of GameStop stock just because Redditors were boosting it? Now, you might not like what Redditors were doing. You might not, but guess what? That was a free market. It was a bunch of people who came together, and then the bank said, well, hold on a second. This is too powerful. So we need to make sure that someone steps in from regulatory affairs to stop you from playing the game that we have already rigged.
Well, and they sided with Wall Street. They sided with a hedge fund and several hedge funds, really, that were shorting GameStop and driving the price down. And basically people said, that's not fair. We don't like that. And Robinhood steps in and says, it doesn't matter if you like it or not.
Right.
We're going to put a halt to this. So nobody can sell their stock or buy whatever the parameters were. You just can't trade this stock anymore. It's like, for no reason other than somebody was losing billions of dollars that they liked.
Yeah. So we didn't stop it. You just can't trade it. Well, what else would I do with stock?
It's just sitting there.
Hey, also, when it comes to charitable giving, the characteristic most likely to increase giving was marriage. But then also Republicans do donate more than Democrats. And also, religious practice is the behavioral variable most consistent with generous giving.
And was that from David Brooks's book?
This is from a few different sources.
Okay, because he wrote a whole book on it, I think, called "Who Really Cares." I think it was David Brooks. There's so many Brooks. So there's a Shawshank Brooks.
Not for long.
So you have these banks. Okay. So you have big tech. Now you have enough for long. It's going to be dangling. That'll be me at the end of this show. Just,
yeah, Brooks was here.
Don't worry, I'll leave a sardine can with a couple of bucks buried underneath an oak tree. Yeah, thanks. You really saved him there. Yeah. So these same banks, by the way, donate overwhelmingly to Democrats. The myth of the big bank, the fat cat Wall Street banker, right? Republicans. It couldn't be further from the truth. Certainly in the modern era. Maybe once upon a time. Not anymore. So let's look at hedge fund managers. You have Sussman, Snyder, Eichner donated $70 million each to Democrats from 2008 to the 2018 midterms. 2020, Wall Street backed Biden to Trump, $74 million to $18 million. Biden has had multiple aides ties to BlackRock, a venture capital firm Revolution, a consulting firm Precision Strategies. These are the biggest companies that exist in the world, right? Too big to fail. And the current Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, founded the consulting firm West Exec, which is, or I guess I should say they formally employed also Jen Psaki, CIA Deputy Director David Cohen, Director of the National Intelligence Avril Haines. So in other words, it's this unholy alliance of shitheels across the board. You have people who have worked in these companies, hedge funds, right, who give overwhelmingly to Democrats, who have worked with these banks. Then they get appointed to unelected roles in government. And sometimes that even involves roles in your intelligence committees, the CIA, the FBI. Think about that for a second. Think of the path from working for a company that gives $74 million to a politician and follow that little trail, right? Like follow the asshole trail, back of a kid's placemat, and you end up, say, deputy director.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the most surprising stat that you said in there was that Wall Street backed Biden to Trump, and the number was 74 to 18. The economy was booming under Donald Trump. If anything, they should have been like, we're rolling in the dough. Trump has basically got like the Dow's at 30,000, the Dow's at 30. He's got these like placards thrown in the bathroom because he doesn't have room for them anymore for the records he was setting. And they're backing. There's no explanation for that other than they want special treatment.
Well, not only special treatment, I can tell you why. The market goes up. Right, the market overall has been going up under Biden if you look at it overall as a whole. You have bad days, and you can argue about the rate of climb, but the government wins out over the market wins out over time.
No, you said it right the first time.
Yeah, the government wins out over time. But the market wins out over time. The problem is with Donald Trump, unlike with Joe Biden. Look, is anyone buying this shit when they say the economy's booming? You know it's not. I know it's not. They tried to say, keep in mind, under Jimmy Carter and under Barack Obama, they tried to gaslight you and say, no, the economy's great. Everyone knew that it wasn't the case. You would even have the biggest detractors of Donald Trump saying, well, what's the economy worth when you have someone who brings shame to us on an international stage? The reason why the market wins out, the banks will do fine no matter what. It's that the average American was doing better.
Yeah.
The banks could be doing better if the average Americans were doing slightly worse. The banks could be, even though they're making tons of money, hand over fist, billions of dollars going to these CEOs who, by the way, are glorified managers. They're not actual business owners. They say, but we could make more billions if we create a permanent class of renters. We could make more billions if the average salary under Donald Trump, the average salary went up like $5,000. I think under Barack Obama, the first was at 8 years. It was $1,300. 3 years of Donald Trump was $5,000. The average American benefited, and the banks and Wall Street benefited also. Right now, Wall Street banks are beneficiaries at your expense. That's the big difference. But here's the thing. Greed cannot harm you from big banks if they don't receive bailouts, if they don't get preferential treatment. The less red tape there is, the harder it is for them to get ahead. Why do you think these giant corporations always support big government policies? Because it eliminates the mom and pop competition. Yeah. Again, is your libertarianism, how is it going to solve this here? And if your answer is go in and just slash up, it's not going to happen. That's not what happens with our legislative process. How do you fix it? Libertarianism right now, it's a preventative measure that cannot offer solutions. So we've hit, do you have anything else to add? We have big tech, we have banks. All right, now we can go on to other corporations being an arm of the government. These are sort of what we might say miscellaneous. You have special interest groups like Planned Parenthood, $45 million to back Democrats in the 2020 election. Maybe that explains why in 2019 all but 3 Democrats voted against the Born Alive Survivors Protection Act. And that's one of the few bills that is aptly named, just to be clear.
Yes, it means what it says.
Like the Green New Deal, like, what is that? I don't know what that means. Well, that's by design. The Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Here, I want you to picture what it actually... Yes. Yes, babies were being born alive, and they were being allowed to die. Wasn't happening in huge numbers, but it was enough if it was more than 0, and Democrats voted against it.
Wonder why.
All of them. all except for 3 with a conscience. Now we go on to Visa, MasterCard, American Express, who, by the way, have received billions of dollars in bailout money. They're now all going to track gun purchases using a new purchase code, which, by the way, could be provided to the government, considering that private data has been given over to the government by these companies in the past. Let's look at airlines, one of your favorite businesses, I'm sure. They're beholden to the government after receiving over $54 billion in bailouts, and I think that's even just the most recent round with COVID-19 relief. Hey, hold on a second. Now that we're back in full swing, has that been passed on to you? Let's think about it. Libertarians, right? The free market. Do you get a bag of peanuts? What about the checked baggage fee? Is your airline experience now more pleasant, or at least as pleasant as it was pre-COVID, or does it still suck? Because once the government steps in and says, all right, we're going to give you this money, it comes with strings attached, guess what? It never gets better. It only gets worse. So let me recap this for you. And I'd like you, comment below if you disagree. I have a lot of libertarian friends, and I agree with the principles of it. I'm just saying that pragmatically it doesn't apply here. What do we have? We have collusion between big tech, and what do I mean? The most powerful companies that have ever existed. You've got Facebook, you've got, Meta.
Whatever.
Like we don't know what that means. So you've got Meta, Twitter, YouTube, Google, Amazon, Apple, right? Okay. We have collusion between them. All the banks, all the big credit card companies, multiple corporations and special interest groups, airlines. You're a citizen. Where do you go if you want to live in a free market? Well, just don't be anywhere in big tech. Go create your own. Well, just don't do any banking with big banks. Go create your own. Well, just don't use any of the major credit card companies. Just use cryptocurrency. Yeah, that'll never be regulated if it becomes as powerful as fiat currency. Airlines, go buy a plane. The point is we are at a point where it's not something that you can simply solve through free market alternatives because they have been locked down, and that can only happen through the corruption that has taken place between the government and these corporations. And I get it. The irony is not lost on me that we do need some fighters in government to try and roll this back, because it cannot simply be solved through the free market at this point. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. When you've basically handicapped the entire system, you can't just say, oh, well, the system will correct itself. No, you're the ones running the system.
Right.
And it's never worked in history before. So.
No,
why? Oh, this segment is terrible. It's times like these I'm confused how any of these guys have a woman. I know. These morons have nothing to offer a lady. Well, I wouldn't say nothing. Oh? Why's that, Landler? Well, at least after being with them, they'll make a happy widow.
I don't know, on the balcony there.
Especially Gerald.
Wait, what?
Kids will like it too. Check the beneficiary on your
All right. I don't know why we installed the balcony and gave them season tickets. Okay.
That was really mean.
Gerald, it's not true.
Well, why don't you cry about it?
It's not true. Some people, they just hate for no reason, Gerald. Yeah, okay.
That's what I tell myself.
So now we'll move on to, now that we've offended libertarians and Russian soldiers, there's one Russian soldier watching. He's like watching through a VPN. He's like, hey, I used to be fan.
I'm using Starlink from Elon Musk, captured from Ukrainians. No longer.
I get people sometimes who are like, I used to be a fan until you, and then they talk about how I offended them on their thing.
Yeah.
Like, I used to be a fan until you said women weren't funny. Well, today you've clearly proven me wrong. So let's move on to hit the like button if you think that women in general aren't funny. Now, it doesn't mean they can't be funny. They just don't have to be funny. And so they largely aren't. Now, I'll allow it. Let's move on to the Vatican. Again, to be clear, I need to reiterate this again because sometimes you'll get Catholics who will get this is just like when I talk about the communist Chinese government. When I say I cannot stand the Chinese, I mean the government, not the people. Same thing, I'm talking about the Vatican. Mm-hmm. Not even just the Pope, I'm talking about the Vatican. Okay? Not Bible-believing Catholics. Bible-believing Catholics who I think want better from the people who are their international representatives. If you're Catholic, I would love to hear from you in the comments. I genuinely would, because I have some friends who are Catholic. Actually, this segment, I worked with one of our researchers who is Catholic, who's absolutely livid about the situation with the Vatican and the Pope.
So many are, and I know we're going to hear from them.
Yes.
One way or the other, we're going to hear.
So here's what's been going on. The Vatican, the Pope, they've basically abandoned this Hong Kong cardinal.
Yeah.
And I need to sort of get into the ins and outs here. It's a little bit nerdy. All the references are available at loudwithcreditor.com, where they have signed a deal. They've signed a deal with the devil and what they have done with China, the Vatican. So let me set this up. In Hong Kong, you have Cardinal Joseph Sen. He's on trial for assisting pro-democracy protesters during the 2019 demonstrations. You would think this is a good thing. Here's a clip.
After the Hong Kong national security law was passed, the Cardinal was arrested in May for his role as a trustee in a relief fund known to help pro-democracy protesters who participated in the 2019 demonstrations in Hong Kong. Cardinal Zen is well known for his outspoken calls for change in China.
As all believers, we must be
He's
optimistic.
a Justin Bieber fan.
Doesn't mean that we can hope in immediate success, because every relation depends on two parts. Now, if China doesn't change its policy, there's nothing we can expect.
All 6 of the defendants, including Cardinal Zen, have pleaded not guilty. The trial is set to last until September 23rd, and if found guilty, the Cardinal could face serious fines or jail time.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to face fines or jail time. He's going to face disappearance time.
Yeah, exactly.
And just to be clear, because I get it, and Catholics, it's not lost on me that you've been the whipping post for a lot of the media and the entertainment. I understand it. I get why you're touchy. But just see where we're coming from. I'm saying that guy, brass balls, that guy's a cardinal.
Yeah.
Where's the cavalry coming over the hill for that guy? Because I think that guy actually has something to lose, and not the guys in the red, stupid shoes. They deserve the support. If we're talking about Christianity, and let's use the term Catholic Christianity interchangeably. I understand the denominational difference here. If we're talking about spreading the gospel throughout the world, the Catholic Church and the Vatican should make it their raison d'etre to help that man who has a brass pair of balls. I'm supporting him, which is why I am furious with the Vatican and this Pope. And if you're honest with yourself, you are too. So this guy is accused of setting up an illegal fund to pay the legal costs of those arrested. Not like Kamala Harris, who helped with the rioters who burned down Walgreens. I don't think this guy burned down
no
Walgreens. Believers don't do that. So he's being prosecuted under the same law used to target the triad.
Yeah, exactly, which is super strange, right? So racketeering was a charge that they brought up so that they could take care of gangsters and mobsters. So that basically this is like charging the Archbishop of L.A. with racketeering, even though he did no racketeering.
Yeah,
right?
He's Cardinal Capone.
They're making up laws. They're like, oh, well, this worked for gangs. I mean, he set up a defense fund and he wears a funny kind of hat. So, yeah, let's put him in there.
Yep.
That's exactly like what it is.
And by the way, the Pope, Vatican, nowhere to be found.
No.
Not a peep. How is that not infuriating? To every single Catholic out there across the world, we've called men to the mat. We've called non-denominational Christians to the mat on prosperity gospel.
Tons of pastors
We've called tons of pastors to the mat.
Yep.
Hey, pastors to the mat. Where are all the Catholics? And certainly where are those with the giant rooms full of gold? So when Zen was arrested, this was all the Vatican said. Non-committally, I might add. But that's just, that's me.
You and, yeah.
That's me, I'm adding.
And
I'm editorializing.
But you'll see why.
The Holy See has learned with concern the news of Cardinal Zen's arrest and is following the development of the situation with extreme attention. Oh, good to break your gaze from the 12-year-old boy.
Extreme.
That's the only one. That's the only one I'll do. Maybe 2 more. So, I have a question for you right here. I like that. Why is the Vatican? Why are they silent? This should be like catnip for the Vatican. Hey, you have a cardinal who's out there doing the Lord's work, who's pro-democracy, right? You guys have talked. You guys, the Pope has supported Black Lives Matter. Hey, this guy is actually facing persecution, and I don't mean that in the way that people say about South Americans just fleeing shitty socialist governments. That's not actual persecution. This guy could be accidentally disappeared for what he's doing. This should be a layup for the Vatican to say we stand with our own. We stand with those who are spreading the gospel. So, I'm asking you why. I think I have an answer. Yeah.
Pretty good answer.
Leading the witness. Yeah. So, in 2018, the Vatican signed a very shady agreement, again, editorializing, with Beijing, and it had some provisions, including that the Vatican recognized 7 Chinese bishops appointed without the Vatican's approval, that the Vatican can only pick bishops from a pool selected by the Communist Chinese Party. And by the way, that's up for renewal in October.
This agreement is.
This agreement.
Yeah.
And here's something else. Just to be clear, in China, Hong Kong, you may not know this, only a communist Chinese party version of the Bible is even allowed.
Right. That's been rewritten.
It's a crime to have a Bible that isn't approved. And it has. It's been rewritten. There are a lot of parts that have been changed. And by the way, it's a really weird ad in there in Revelations where it says, and behold, a Mao on a horse.
Yeah.
I don't think that was in there.
Yeah. Well, it's the red horse.
Behold, a yellow horse.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea. My point, look, take it up with the Communist Chinese Party. But my point is this. The Vatican is signing a deal with a country that doesn't even allow its citizens to have the Bible.
Yeah.
Hey, how about this? I would be, and I'm going to use some profanity here, my stance would be, if I'm the international representing governing body of Christianity, fuck you, Communist Chinese Party. You don't get to appoint Vaticans, and why would we trust you to do that anyway? You rewrote the Bible, and you arrest people if they have the real one.
Right.
Why is the Vatican playing ball with this country? It's the same reason they're silent when actual cardinals doing the real work that true Catholics believe in are persecuted.
Right. And weren't they, I mean, the whole point of this, aren't we supposed to stand up for those who are oppressed? Right? Now, aren't we supposed to like try and take the gospel to the world and try to heal the brokenhearted, right? And try to bring comfort to those who are suffering and to shine a light on some of the worst atrocities happening on our planet right now and say that love and compassion is the way to go, not, jailing your citizens because they're Uyghurs and putting them in work camps.
Yeah.
Isn't that like if you don't have that as your mission, like if you didn't get the gospel and so that Jesus said, go out and tell the world, like if you're missing that, what are you doing here? You're just raising some funds and living in a place that's pretty well protected and getting to ride around in a pretty sweet golf cart and wear red shoes that are cobbled together for you personally.
There's a guy who makes those red shoes. That's his job.
That's what I'm saying. They're cobbled together personally. Like, I get it, but this
what if he gets fired? Is that his resume? Red shoemaker.
Formerly.
You made shoes? I made red shoes.
Just red shoes. For how many people?
You made red clothing? No, I made red shoes. Only.
Yes.
For one guy.
Right.
Popey Vuittons.
Yes. My Louis P's. So, let's go. This is, by the way, according to the persecution watchdog, Voice of Martyrs. The Communist Chinese Party announced plans to update the Bible to, quote, keep pace with the times.
Update.
The revisions will include adding core socialist values and removing passages that do not reflect communist beliefs.
No.
So it basically turns it into a pop-out book.
Yes.
The headline also says calling Jesus a sinner.
Yes, so he called Jesus a sinner. It's really, this is actually hilarious.
In the Communist Chinese Bible?
Yeah, in the Communist Chinese Bible, you know the part where there's a woman who has sinned and I think she's been caught in the act of adultery, and Jesus is like, he who is without sin cast the first stone. So Lane brought this to me, Ginger Snap, and he was just like, yeah, they called Jesus a sinner here. And I'm like, you kind of buried the lead. It wasn't just that they called him a sinner. It's that everybody walked away in the story, and Jesus chooses in the Bible not to condemn this person too, and says, if they've all left, I will not condemn you as well. So the updated version is, Jesus then took up stones and stoned her himself and said, but I'm a sinner too. Jesus is like, everybody else left, so I'll do the job, lady. Here we go.
So it's poorly written communism.
It is poorly written.
Like Jesus was so dumb that he started stoning Soraya M. Was like, oh no, I forget, I'm a bad man.
Yeah.
I forget, I'm a sinner too.
Oh no.
I mean, how does that even? Jesus would know, right?
He would. Yes. So it was like, yes, Jesus being a sinner. That's a line you can't cross.
Hey, where's the Vatican speaking out against this?
I know. Where's the Vatican on?
Why would you? I understand you have to compromise. It's sometimes to make political deals, for example. But Vatican, you're willing to sign an agreement with Beijing when their express policy is that Jesus is the exact opposite of who we all believe, Catholic, Baptist, Lutheran, him to be, which is the spotless lamb? No, for atheists out there, it doesn't matter if you disagree. You do understand the corruption, right? You do see it, right? Yeah, that is burying the lead.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to read the whole Communist Chinese Bible.
He said that to me, and I just started dying laughing in here. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
They also, by the way, they also ban the sale of the online Bibles. Though you can get them, you can get them without a permit at gun shows.
The Bible gun show loophole.
The Bible show loophole. The foyer loophole.
Oh my God.
So no surprise, of course, Cardinal Zen was a critic of the Vatican. He was a critic specifically of their deal with China when it was signed, and he said they're sending the flock into the mouths of wolves. It's an incredible betrayal. Look, don't miss the point, Cat. I get emails anytime I say, I'm not saying all Catholics. I am saying good Catholic, Cardinal Zen. Bad Catholics? The whole Vatican. The whole Vatican. If there is not one moral man, that whole place should be turned into a pillar of salt at this point. This is one of their own who needs them. And by the way, needs all of us to raise awareness. Sure, I disagree with some theology and Catholicism, but generally speaking, I think that we're within state borders of each other. And I certainly don't want to see Cardinal Zen put effectively in a gulag because the people who sent him out there hung him out to dry. What were you about to say there?
So Biden is addressing the United Nations and specifically after Putin starts. So do we want to cut to that for a minute and see, or do we want to keep going and see if they break in with anything interesting?
You know what? You guys let me know what's going on. We'll go. I want to defend this cardinal here because he needs our defense because he's very slight.
This guy might poop himself, and if he does, we'll break to that.
I guarantee you he's already pooped himself, and then he's going to write it off. So China's infiltrated obviously they've infiltrated members of our government. They've infiltrated,
WHO,
Eric Swalwell's sex closet, and now the Vatican, the most powerful religious institution in the world. And this really does fit a pattern, just to be clear, with the Vatican. And I have a real problem with them. I have a real problem with the Vatican, not Catholics, the Vatican. I feel like I keep having to restate it. Just hit like if you understand that, because I don't want to have to deal with someone like, well, you said this. No, look, Zen and I are cool. Okay.
And he's Catholic.
So let's go back to then, okay, just to see the inconsistencies and the hypocrisies. Very similar to, what was it, something, Pharisees, Sadducees, something like that. I thought Jesus had a problem with them. I'm not drawing parallels between them and the Vatican. They're certainly not pious. So 2019, Pope Francis chastised Trump, of course, for wanting to build a wall. And he said, builders of walls, be they made of razor wire or bricks, will end up becoming prisoners of the walls they build. Migrants should be accepted, protected, and integrated. And if a country cannot handle the numbers, the migrants should be distributed among other countries. Well, that sounds really noble from a guy with multi-million-dollar red shoes. Let's go to now. What exactly does it take to become a citizen of the Vatican? Well, citizenship is only granted to those who, quote, reside in the Vatican because of their work or office. Those who wish to move to the Vatican must have their citizenship approved by the Pope or the papal authority. Oh, and by the way, while we're reminded about them talking about walls, this is the actual Vatican.
Ah, those look like big walls that have been there a long time.
Yeah.
That's not a screenshot from Apocalypto.
Yeah.
The Vatican.
Yes.
So, rules for thee, not for me. You can't have walls. Why? So that you can keep all of them?
Yes, exactly. Because we already have a wall, it's easy for us to say walls are bad.
Right.
Well, then tear yours down, Vatican. Let's live by what we preach.
Right. And by the way, they don't need walls that big. What? No. You see those cardinals, and they're not going to be scaling walls like that.
That's not going to happen.
A few Hondurans with a grappling hook, they can get right in.
No, besides, in Angels and Demons, I think there were so many secret passages they got in anyway.
Also, Tom Hanks' mullet.
The red shoes are climbing shoes.
Yes.
Clogs, climbing clogs.
They're cleats. All right, so again, we're going through the history of the Vatican so that you understand why it's not too out of their pattern historically in throwing someone under the bus and feeding them to the Communist Chinese Party. Let's go back to then. You may not know this. All references available at loudofcreditor.com. World War II. Vatican, by the way, they had an aggressively neutral, let me put it that way, stance towards the Nazis. And you had Pope Pius, what was his number? Pope Pius was it
12?
Was it 12th? I believe it was the 12th.
Yeah.
I don't know, so many numbers.
So many of them, yes.
He was notoriously silent, obviously, during the Holocaust. According to one Nazi ambassador, over 1,000 Jews were rounded up and taken away under the Pope's very windows. And we all know about them sort of transporting some of the Nazis out. And look, I understand that there's a gray area where some Nazis were forced to be Nazis, but if you actually look at the writing that came from the Vatican, that's not all they were doing.
Well, so in this story, under the walls, that under the windows, that actually comes from when they were rounding up Jews, they fled to the Vatican for protection.
Oh, that was a mistake.
And were basically pinned up against the walls and taken. Basically, they had nowhere to go. Right. So that's why he says we rounded them up and took them away under the Pope's very windows. They were watching us do this.
See, I thought it was figurative windows.
Nope. This was literally what happened.
Oh, boy.
Now, maybe the Pope
not allegorical.
On the other side of the compound, and it couldn't have been the Pope's window. They knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And they didn't take a stand.
No. Oh, almost exactly like right now with this cardinal who could be locked away forever.
Surprising.
For supporting democracy, something I thought, because you condemned the United States for not apparently supporting black lives, which wasn't really democracy, it was just mob rule and burning shit down.
Correct.
I think it's a pretty clear example. Again, how do these people support someone with something to lose? That's a really important indicator of someone's character. What do they do when they stand to lose everything? this Cardinal Zen, you know where he stands. You know what kind of character. You know the stuff he's made of. We also have an answer from the people from the Vatican. Because there's something to lose. So that was then Nazis. Now, you have more recently, Pope Francis advocated what? For the disarmament of Americans, right after Uvalde. Pope Francis said, it is time to say enough to the indiscriminate trafficking of children. Sorry, arms. You said arms.
Freudian slip.
How about we'll just shuffle the guns from store to store for a few decades, Pope Francis? Not a peep. That was the last one. Where the hell do you get off telling us what we have to do with our firearms? You don't have any constitutional rights, the Vatican. You don't. You don't recognize them. And by the way, you don't even recognize basic human rights. As seen by the Cardinal, you guys threw under the bus.
And I'm not even sure he's read the part of the Bible where Jesus says, you guys are going to need swords. He's like, we have two. Okay, that should be good.
Yeah.
Like, I understand there's a lot of meaning in that and a lot going on. But Jesus was not for just taking a beating.
Right.
He wasn't for not protecting yourself. Right? There were certain times where it was fine to do that.
Yeah. Hey, do you know why we need to have our firearms, Pope Francis? I know, and I know we're all supposed to, you're infallible and what have you. The reason that we need arms is so that we aren't turned into an entire nation of Cardinal Zens. The guy who you threw under the bus? That's why. So the government can't come in and treat us like Cardinal Zen. And just to be clear, all the liberals here in the United States, do you understand, like, would you say he's an extremist? Because I know you want to say that anyone here who wants to go to a gun show, or anyone here who wants to live out in a rural area, or anyone here who has a problem with the CIA or believes in disbanding the FBI is an extremist. Is Zen an extremist? Because Zen is a perfect example of someone who's defenseless. That's why we need him, Pope Francis. Hey, you know what? If you need a couple of history books as to why we do it here, and by the way, also why the founders, when we're talking about the signers of the Declaration of Independence, they were leery of, back then, militant Catholics signing. Why? Because they felt that they might have a higher allegiance to the Vatican, and it wasn't because of the Catholic faith. It was because of the political power that existed within the Vatican. And they said, we cannot have signers who have an allegiance to some other government entity beyond this Constitution of the United States. That's a historical fact. And we see now why.
Yeah. Are you protected, by the way? Is the Swiss Guard armed? The people that protect you, are they armed?
Oh, yeah.
So you do believe in having guns for protection, just not for other people?
They only believe in really large walls. So then you have Cardinal Cupic, I believe is his name, an Archbishop of Chicago, said the Second Amendment did not come down from Sinai. The right to bear arms will never be more important than human life. Well, okay, I get that you're a cardinal. You're a stupid man. The whole reason for firearms is to protect human life. As a matter of fact, it's the only reason. It's the only reason. Some people misuse the tool to take human lives, just like if you don't know how to use a tool and you decide to try and use a wrench instead of a hammer.
Yeah.
I did that once. It was embarrassing.
You know what else didn't come down from Sinai? You're talking about the Ten Commandments, sir. Most of what Jesus said, of course he expounded upon the Ten Commandments, but he said a lot of other stuff too. So if you're saying, well, it didn't come down from Sinai, so it must be something that we need to discard, you're throwing out most of what Jesus said.
No, but they have a different version where Moses came down and said, I bring you these Lord's 10 Commandments and these really cool red shoes.
And it will be for the man.
Yeah. He was wearing 2 golden calves.
Yeah, well, they were having quite the party. When
they were having quite the party.
Kind of pissed. That was actually the second draft. He was like, all right, we need to change some of these rules. These guys are going crazy.
Yeah, these guys are going a little bit nuts. No, think about this. Oh, is that the standard? It comes down from Sinai? What about the Vatican? What about all the stuff that you guys do, all of these rituals? And I understand that because I understand the point that not every single rule or certainly spirit of the law that we follow comes from Sinai. But you're a stupid person. Can we say this? The Pope is a stupid person. A lot of these bishops are stupid people. These cardinals, a lot of them, not all, are stupid people. If you don't understand that firearms are necessary to protecting human life. Oh, wait a second. You do, because I've heard your dumbass statements on Ukraine and Russia. You know it is, because you've asked that we help Ukraine. How are we helping them? Guns! Guns! The answer is, when you are fighting evil with guns, the answer is always guns, folks. It's all guns these days, kids. So let me recap, and then we'll go to Biden shitting his pants here live. The Vatican is what? Silent on the persecution in Hong Kong of a cardinal who they should be standing by. They signed a shady agreement with Beijing. That's why they're silent on China banning the Bible and claiming that Jesus is a sinner, which kind of a big deal you would think in the Christian faith. Immigration for thee, but not for me. And you know what? They probably maybe helped out a little bit in the Holocaust.
Or at least didn't take the kind of stand that you should. You know what you should have done? If they were not saying something because they're like, oh, we'll be destroyed, or oh, maybe we'll, Catholics will be killed. Fine. That is the price you pay. Look at what the leader did. Look at what the leader of our faith did. He laid down his life for everybody in the flock. If it costs you everything, if you absolutely disappear from the map, you have to trust that God has a plan and his church will carry on. Not if you think you're the only church. Not if you think that the building that you reside in, the Vatican, the artifacts, everything that you have is what makes faith faith. It isn't. I'm sorry. I understand the importance of it, but in that moment, you stand up and you say, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And if it costs us everything, it's still wrong. We'll go to heaven knowing we have a clear conscience and we did the right thing, but that's not what happened.
And let's say that you even believe that this pope is only infallible on issues of spirituality and speaking ex cathedra, because that came from Sinai.
St. Peter's chair.
There was a Sinai thing.
That's true.
Let's say you believe all of that. Okay? Even if you do, when there's a cardinal who's looking at imprisonment and, let's be honest, likely death or severe torture in China for speaking up for Christian values, and you aren't saying anything, you're still a Chinese finger puppet. Let's see what Joe Biden has to say right now in front of the
pissed off a lot of people.
In front of the late '80s thriller marble wall.
That's true. They have it not updated.
Is Sharon Stone going to come out and cross her legs? Let's see.
Survive. This is the human cost of climate change, and it's growing, not lessening.
Oh, great.
So as I announced last year,
nice gold wall,
to meet our global responsibility, my administration is working with our Congress to deliver more than $11 billion a year to international climate finance. To help lower-income countries.
So turn it down really quickly. This is a perfect example. People say we need to find common ground. We're all hearing the same thing, and right now he's going, I did $11 billion in climate finance, and we're going, $11 billion in climate finance bullshit? Let's continue.
Vulnerable countries adapt to the impacts of climate change and build resilience.
Move.
Yeah.
This need is enormous. So let this be the moment we find within ourselves the will to turn back the tide of climate devastation.
Looking at you, devastation? What's devastation?
Sustainable, clean energy economy to preserve our planet.
Yeah, it's working like a charm in California. People are using gas generators to electrically charge their Teslas. True. Just to be clear, and it's working like a charm, by the way, in Germany and these places in Europe have said, you know what, we better start up looking at nuclear. Yeah. Hey, even Elon Musk, the guy who's done more to spearhead green technology, we're really talking about electric cars, said you can't do it unless you start using nuclear. And I don't know if you know this. Do you know how many carbon emissions come from nuclear power? Do you have take a guess? Take a guess.
A lot.
Zero.
Oh, I was
zero. Zero. And the lowest deaths per kilowatt hour, I believe, of any energy resource, certainly lower than solar, than wind, or coal. I know that. But we had 3 Mile Island once in Fukushima and Chernobyl. So we don't do it. If you want to talk, it's about this. And if you look at the green policy that he's talking about, it's a monumental shift from the middle class to a few select companies.
Yeah.
Let's see what else he has to say.
Resulting in one of the largest global health fundraisers ever held in all history.
All you ever talk about is
also taking
spending money.
Right. And putting Podesta in charge of it.
As many as 193 million people around the world experience acute food insecurity.
Oh, I thought you were saying cute, acute, meaning how Hunter Biden refers to his niece.
Today I'm announcing another $2.9 billion.
Oh, good. More of our money.
U.S. support for life-saving humanitarian and food security assistance.
Can you fix the problem, please? All we're doing is throwing money at the symptoms and not fixing the cause of the problem. And it's like, hey, this year we're going to give more money to this, and more people than ever are hungry.
Hey, let me ask you this. We all know, right? Can we all agree that, of course, we're not going to be completely transitioned, for example, to electric vehicles by, I think they're saying the earliest they can hope for is 2030 something.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about creating all of this new infrastructure and superchargers that, by the way, cannot be supported by the current power grid. And you've seen me. I changed my mind on Teslas, not because I think they're more green. They're actually less green. I just think they're cool. They're pretty fun to drive. Fun. I don't care how many seagulls have to die in an oil spill. I want to go plaid. Now, all this electric car infrastructure. When was the last time we reinforced our gas infrastructure? We're talking about lineups around the gas station. Right? When was the last time we made that more efficient? Because efficiency will always lead to incremental gains, right? They'll lead to cleaner energy, to cleaner uses of that energy. We're talking about developing infrastructure, by the way, for cars that most people don't want, can't afford, or are impractical. We're nowhere near electric cars being practical for the vast majority of this country. They're very fun to drive.
Yeah.
Need to do a road trip? Drive across the country? We're not there yet. Live in an apartment where you don't have your own charger? We're not there yet. I know that you have solutions that are all far off, but we're not there yet. But what are we doing to improve the infrastructure of the energy that we need to use now? Well, guess what? That would help you, the average American, not the big companies with these no-bid government contracts.
They're the best cars powered by coal on the planet, Stephen.
Yeah, exactly. Even Elon Musk has said so.
He has. Of course.
Crying out loud.
It's a transition.
Let's watch more of this guy in front of his marble slabs.
Is scaling up innovative ways to get drought and heat-resistant
I'm talking
seeds
in front of Cold Stone
into the
Creamery.
hands of farmers who need them, while distributing fertilizer and improving fertilizer efficiency so that farmers can grow more.
Hey, why was there a shortage? Why was there a fertilizer shortage? Oh, that's right. You created a problem, and now you're spending our money to go in and fix it.
Grain, while so many people are suffering. Because in every country in the world, no matter what else divides us, if parents cannot feed their children, nothing else matters. If parents cannot feed their children. As we look to the future, we're working with our partners to update and create rules of the road for new challenges we face in the 21st century.
So just to be clear, when we're talking about that, it's not like the Green New Deal or environmentally minded legislation would in any way try and be punitive towards companies that harvest or manufacture meat, right? He's talking about wanting to feed families, right?
Right.
It's not like they would be trying to artificially subsidize and move us towards a diet that is primarily plant-based, right? Which, by the way, requires huge, giant, vast swaths of land. So he's not making anything cost prohibitive, right? Because parents need to feed their kids. He's slashing taxes and regulations and red tape across the board so that we won't have, for example, a meat shortage. And I don't have them as a sponsor here on the show today, but go to goodranchers.com, enter in the promo code Crowder because you lock in that price. There is a beef shortage that's coming down the pike, just so you know. It's happening.
Resilient, sustainable, and shared. That's why the United States has championed a global minimum tax. And we will work to see it implemented so major corporations pay their fair share everywhere. Everywhere.
According to who?
It's also been the idea behind the Indo-Pacific Economic
What's
Framework.
tax for corporations across the globe? And we're going to also build a colony on Mars tomorrow. But I would have believed that first, I think.
Yeah, I would have. Yeah.
For
much
a
more
critical
reasonable.
Pacific region
I saw Red
that
Planet.
is free and open, connected and prosperous, secure and resilient. Together with partners around the world, we're working to secure resilient supply chains.
Yeah, he's a big fan of Syracuse.
Everyone from coercion or domination, and ensure that no country can use energy as a weapon. And as Russia's war riles the global economy,
oh boy,
we're also calling on major global creditors, including.
Let me just examine that really quickly, okay? That no country uses energy as a weapon. Now, presumably, we're not talking about like atomic energy. We know what he's saying. He's talking about energy. He's talking about resources. Okay. There's only one way in which any country could use energy as a weapon. That's if other countries are dependent on it.
Right.
It's not a weapon if you don't need their energy. The United States, right now, could be not only entirely energy independent right now if we allowed it to happen. And of course, there would need to be some time to build up the infrastructure. But we could also supply more of the world with energy. Just to be clear, we don't need Russia, don't need Saudi Arabia. We don't need those agreements, but we're not allowed to. We're not allowed to. The only way it's able to be used as a weapon is what? Well, if it's done so under the guise of the globalist economy, the internationalism which you so fervently support. If we say, hey, you know what? We're a nationalist country. We're going to look out for our own interests. Guess what? You just made the case for it. No one can use energy as a weapon against us or a food shortage against us.
Yeah. By the way, it is entirely reasonable to use energy as a weapon against the people who are supporting your enemy. I'm not agreeing with Russia invading Ukraine.
No,
but I'm saying if you're on the side of Russia and you're like, well, all these countries that we supply energy to, they keep sending money and arms. We'll just turn the energy off. Well, we can't do that because Biden said that was wrong.
They have nothing else to do. You saw their soldier.
And didn't you? I mean, we did the exact same thing to Japan with oil prior to them bombing Pearl Harbor. I'm not agreeing with their.
Then we
reaction.
gave them a whole bunch of energy in one shot.
Well, we made up for it for years to come.
Josh Hartnett says hello, bitch.
It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And by the way, if that is your, he didn't drop the bomb. He was part of the
I was busy making out with Faith Hill or something.
You know what I mean? No, but if that's your policy where energy can't be used as a weapon, like you said, shouldn't you be the most pro-energy independent administration that this country has ever seen? Which means you would be saying, drill everywhere you can until we get to a place where we have completely renewable energy. Build every nuclear power plant that you can possibly build. Do every pipeline is welcome as long as it's safe and meets the standards of the industry. Like
Oprah that shit. And you get a pipeline, and you get a pipeline.
But bam.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
well, you're going the Emeril Lagasse way, but sure.
I did. I went a little different.
But no, here's the thing, and I know what you're going to say, and I'll just point you to references for previous. We're trying to say actually he opened up more federal land leases. No, he did it. You're talking about this. Again, shut down more when you look at the leases that were taking place under Donald Trump. And not only that, we're not talking about leases where that currently exist, but new ones and new land is also something that's very important. So this idea, they'll try and say, actually, he's done more for energy independence than any president. It's complete and total bullshit. I've done an entire segment on it. Just want to cut that off at the pass because I know a lot of you who are new probably don't know the bullshit that you've been spoon-fed. Yeah. We've already addressed it. That guy... Everything that guy said is bullshit. All right, let's see his next step. I know, we got to get going. But
we remain committed to our one-China policy, which has helped prevent conflict for 4 decades.
Well, do we want to keep streaming this on YouTube or do we want to stream it on Mud Club?
Let's go to Mud Club and give these guys a little side benefit there.
We'll stream this live more on Mud Club. And like I said, Dave's going to be back here next week.
Yep.
He has a family member who has some health issues. So send him your comments, your love below, prayers. You can send them to him on Instagram or on Twitter. Like, share. Any of that stuff, it helps the show. It helps the algorithm because you can't find us on YouTube. Right now, we're going to continue streaming this. We may play Photoshop or not. I think we should just keep streaming this because this guy, because it's he's an asshole. YouTube, piss off.